One championship, 8 races, legendary circuits, drivers from all over the world, one family, one passion, endurance racing. Welcome to the most professional endurance racing series for all drivers, amateurs, semi-professional and professional. Welcome to the 24-hour series powered by Hankook. Can you beat the challenge of 8 endurance races? Will you become the 24-hour series champion for 2021? This is endurance.
Racing once more after, as I say, a 4-month break. My name's Johnny Palmer, delighted that you can be part of the coverage. Although there's a fair bit of cloud cover around, the temperature is certainly very good. A very warm welcome then to the 2021 edition of the Hankook 24 Hours of Barcelona for the Trofeo Fermi Vélez over the next 3 days, with free practice happening earlier this morning. A reminder of where this sits in the 2021 calendar. The 24 Hours of Dubai, of course, kicks things off in the middle of January, and then a bit of a wait until the European part of the season began, although remember, no separate championships this year, all combined in an international affair, effectively. So round 2 at Mugello, round 3, the 12 Hours of Circuit Paul Ricard, at the end of April down there in the south of France. Then we had about a month off before the 12 Hours of Hockenheimring, but the longest gap has been until now for the 24 Hours of Barcelona. Of course, 24H Series were working incredibly hard to try and make an event happen between May and September, but this will be round 5 of the series. Then at the start of October, it is a revisit back to Italy, although this time to Sicily and the Coppa Florio for the 12 Hours of Sicily there. And then in November, the 24 Hours of Sebring on the famous concrete in Florida. Really looking forward to that one. It will be Johnny Palmer and John Hindhoff to take you through the next split section then, each of 30 minutes for the TCE cars and the GT cars. But now that we've had a look at the calendar, we can go down to the pit lane and hear from our third voice today, Mr. Nick Damon.
Hello, Johnny. Hello, everybody. Well, all I can say is me in a pit lane with my reputation. Well, I've been banned for the last 20 months by various things, but we are here in Barcelona. Yeah, we normally do that on a hotkey, and you probably realise why. Fantastic atmosphere here. We've had a lot of practice and everything else. Now I'm going to show you something on the floor, Seb. Look at this stuff. This has not been a visit by a load of overexcited puppies. This is rain. We've had a couple of showers during the last hour or so, and the forecast is for more. So with 2 half-hour sessions, just coming up the TC for the touring cars. Then after a very short break, we'll have the GT cars. It may be all about timing your pit stops, so your track time, that will enable you to get the best time in qualifying. Anyway, about to go out are the touring cars, a few of the Spanish, with the big TCR battle we're expecting. So it's going to be great. Johnny, how's it back there in sunny England with all the rain here?
Much the same, really. But of course, from a broadcast perspective, we're all together, Nick. We're all together. The 125 Cupra in that Bumblebee livery is heading now out towards the first corner. Already quite a bit of pickup around the track, I noticed. This is one of the Baz Cooten run cars. And very shortly, we'll be able to give you details of who is in each of the cars in readiness for qualifying. This is, although it's 30 minutes on the clock, going to be an intense session because a lot of the teams are relying on this staying green, and if there is an incident, then it does take a little while to get all the cars back in the pit lane and then for them to restart the session. So fingers crossed that it can stay as clear as possible. And as I say, this is just part one of qualifying, with the GT series to come a little bit later on, again for 30 minutes. So it's Nick Damon in the pit lane, Johnny Palmer and John Hindhoff in the global broadcast centre. John, already a bit of running earlier this morning, but this is where the sessions start to properly count.
And people getting out nice and early, including Bob Stevens in that Bumblebee at number 125 Cupra on home ground, of course, the Spanish manufacturer. The car just coming round. Now, one of the things that I didn't get to see this morning, and perhaps JP, you can tell me and our listener and viewer, is which version of the track we're using. Are we using... question has been answered by Bob. We are using the new version of the track, which goes straight on and misses out turn 11 effectively. So straight through to a much faster entry on the middle straight, if you will. And when I saw that for Formula One earlier on the season, I thought that would be much better for the originally for the motorbikes, of course, but I thought it would be much better for endurance racing, and I'm glad to see we are using it as that car comes around to complete its outlap and go on to a flyer. Got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars out on the circuit. In fact, the 8th has just gone out. That was Colin White in the Ginetta G55, because although this is a touring car, TCE qualifying, we do have a couple of cars that aren't TCRs in here. That would be the BMW M2 Competition, the Team AGP Tangerine Association, just for you, Johnny, the 221 car.
I like it. Yeah, I had a word, and they've paid attention, so that's very good of them. Now, obviously, we're going to fill a bit of this session trying to chat to drivers as well. Our first session of the weekend, and Nick has very quickly found Christian Frankenhout.
Now, those of you who are long-time viewers and listeners to Creventic Series, why is Nick speaking to Christian Frankenhoop for the TCR side? But Christian, a previous winner here, of course, in the old A6 class, overall winner. Now you're slumming it with the TCR cars.
Yeah, but it's still a fast car, and it's still fun to drive. So, no, I was asked 4 guys here, Jos, Bob, Bert, Martin, are all doing the 24 hours for the first time. So they wanted an experienced driver to help them. I'm already coaching them from March. So we're doing a lot on the simulator. We're doing test days in Zandvoort, in Assen, watching videos about the race. So they're well prepared. And as you can see, they're doing a good job. We didn't have any issues until now. The lap times are good. But okay, tomorrow is the 24 hours and it's a whole new story for them. But it's a lot of fun.
Now, surely as theoretically the fastest driver, I assume you are as a teacher, you should be out there qualifying it.
Well, it's the faster of the 4 drivers. So we said, okay, we let them do the qualifying because it's their race, I'm there to support them. I'm like the backup driver. I will drive also in the race, but I'm the backup driver. So it's their party, it's their thing. So Bob is really doing a really good job. he's not far off the times I'm driving, and yeah, hopefully he does a good job now in qualifying.
Now, of course, you're used to being in the fastest class all those years with Hoffa. Now you're being overtaken by those rude GT3 cars. What's that like?
Yeah, man, they cannot drive. They're idiots. No. It's no. But it's okay, you know. And of course, it's always hard to see who's driving, and it's the same if you're driving the faster car. So now you need to get used to who's driving again, and also that they know who you are, you know. And then, of course, you can see if someone's driving a TCR car and he's fast through the corners, and okay, you can wait after the corner, and otherwise it's sometimes messy, but that's learning, you know, and that's also with the other guys. They need to learn how to deal with traffic. So we practice that as well, and it's good. It's okay to do. Still 30 cars on the grid, but it's a good way to do it, and it's okay, you know. We don't want to, get each other into trouble. So all the cars are, but okay, tomorrow's the race. It's a little bit different than free practice, but no problems until now, and you see there, everybody is really relaxed.
You're intricately linked, to say, with the Mercedes and Hoffa, and you and Kenneth Hire driving together. Is that all over now? Is that a chapter of history, or could that ever come back again?
I don't know. I know they are now preparing the car. Michael said, okay, they are now preparing the car, so it's race ready. But when they're going to race, I don't know. It's still a question, and they want to have like everything free, everything. With Corona, it's always a little bit different. But okay, we hope that we can come back on the grid soon. Now I like to drive the AMG again and show that we are still there and still can win.
Great to see you again, Christian. Best luck the weekend.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
Thanks a lot.
Who is part of the BARCELONA racing crew then, with the yellow and black Cupra that we've already mentioned. Bob Stevens doing the qualifying in the number 125 car, and he's currently 5th fastest for the Dutchman. And there are 3 Cupras in the entry and out there on track currently, although we haven't yet seen a flying lap for Florent Flutza Cross in the number 151 Bapora Motorsport Cupra. So they're the only Spanish entered crew. No, beg pardon, we've got the rail equipped by Totcar Sport crew as well, who are also running a Cupra. So 2 Spanish Cupras, great to see. It is the Autorama Motorsport by Wolf Power Racing VW Golf, though, of Emil Heyerdahl that is fastest so far, about to come through to complete another lap, and that is car number 1. There are 2 Autorama Motorsport VW Golfs, as per usual, in fact. But a new name on me is Arūnas Gesikas. That's not how you say that name, but I will practice it. Arūnas Gesiauskas, who is Lithuanian and has just done a 159.225, putting that car in 5th position and just behind Colin White. But no surprise, John Hindhaugh, to see already Autorama Motorsport, who've proven through the years to be qualification specialists, setting the pace in this one so far.
No drama, Autorama, that's what we often say, isn't it, in that boring white Porsche. Well, it's got a bit of grey and red on the side, and it's a Golf. But you know what I mean. They just get on and do their job, and their job is clicking off laps, and they continue to do it very, very well indeed. Just a quick mention for Baporo. They've done very well here down through the years. I seem to think that they got I think they got a win here in class a few years ago, and I haven't looked that up yet, which I should have done before I started that sentence. But they are a local team, although this year the lineup for them, the all Spanish lineup, as is their wont, doesn't feature any big names in it. It's very much a couple of family affairs, isn't it, for the 151.
Recently, and that was 2019, because there was no Barcelona 24 hours, at least as part of the Creventic Championship last year. Most recently, therefore, 2019, which was the end of August, the TCR category was won by Top Car Sport, which was a BARCELONA run car at the time, for Fabian Dance, for Julien Apostolos, Ronnie Yost and Antti Burri, who are always very, very fast in their, well, it can be top car, it can be a variety of other teams as well, particularly that we've seen Antti Burri in through the years. But I'll go a bit further back through the archive, John, to find out when that good year for Bapora was. But as you say, they're a local team, and this is one of their favourite events of the year. Yeah,
and they have run Audis in the past as well, Audi R8s in the GT Cup Open, European GT Cup Open Series as well. They are very good here at Barcelona, had podium successes with that car here at Barcelona as well. It is Emil Heyerdahl in that Volkswagen Autorama by Wolf Power that is leading at the moment by about 10.5. Mathieu Detré in a AC Motorsport, that'll be the 188. Yes, it is. That's the black and purple car. They've had that colour scheme for quite some time for AC Motorsport, the RS3 Audi. A brand new Audi this weekend, making its debut in the GT section, and orders now being taken for the new version of this car, the Audi RS3 LMSD SG or sequential. That's been updated as well. CWS, Colin White with the Soul Ginetta, the G55. He's a second away from pole position. Make that 7/10 now as he clocks a 1:57.6. So already 5 cars under that magic 2-minute barrier for the qualifying times here at Barcelona in this session for the TCE part of the race. And AC go to the top, as we were talking about them. Mathieu finds a couple of tenths and clocks in with a 1:56.8 to take provisional pole, JP.
Yeah, Mathieu Detré, who has been impressing me through the course of the year, getting steadily quicker and quicker behind the wheel of that AC Motorsport Audi. He is Belgian, like the team, and finding the time, particularly through the middle sector, it seems. He went purple to set the 1:56.863. Jorge Belloc Ruiz, who is certainly a regular at the event, and possibly with Top Car Sport as well, something else for me to look up, but the rail equipped by Top Car Sport car, being driven by Jorge currently, number 123. And you can hear the 2-litre turbocharged engine under a bit of stress coming through the early part of the lap. Colin White's Ginetta is out there as well. That is in a separate class. So these are all TCE series cars, but they're a combination of TCRs and TCXs, as the 24H series deems them. And Colin is currently quickest of the TCXs, running in 3rd place in the 278 Ginetta G55, John.
Great car for this, and the endurance spec of these cars quite sophisticated. They do have aircon systems, probably don't need that right now, but it's forecast with a little bit of a high pressure just hovering over to the north of the UK and influencing the weather down into Spain. It will get hotter over the weekend, and the aircon system in the G55 is clever enough that when you are full throttle it doesn't work, so it doesn't cost you any of the V6 engine's power, but when you lift off it kicks in and throws cold air at you, which is really rather clever and works very well indeed in what is quite a claustrophobic cockpit in that little British built coupe. Colin has stuck with the Ginetta brand for quite some time now, JP, with varying degrees of success. Suffice to say that if they get a decent run, they will be challenging for the TCE honours. It's a question of potentially accident damage and reliability for the 278 car.
Yeah, Colin will not have great memories of this place, though, because the last time I was present at the 24 Hours of Barcelona, very early on in the race, Colin and his team suffered a massive fire with the Ginetta they had on site at that occasion. I'm sure this is a different car, because I'm sad to say there wasn't a great deal left of the G55. Close to the end of the lap, he was coming out of the final chicane, the left and the right, and that's when we all realised the car had ground to a halt and not reached the end of the lap. But we need to put
there was
all
another
those...
time, JP,
yeah, go on.
here, where the car was dragged off the track or got off the track, I think at turn 1 or 2, and Colin got on his push bike and rode round with some tools to try and fix it and get it back.
Yeah.
So you're right, this isn't a happy hunting ground. So maybe the Catalonian curse can be assuaged this weekend, and we might get to see Colin and the rest of the 278 team get a decent run. He's sharing this weekend with a couple of other Brits and an American. Jean-Francois Bruno is the semi-pro, along with, and he's the American flag driver, Angus Fender, also the semi-pro. Ian Stinton, along with Colin, are listed as the 2 AM drivers in that car.
Yeah, and John Bruno, who's been racing certainly all season with Colin, and they might have done a little bit together the back end of last year as well. Yeah, in fact, John raced at Dubai at the start of 2020. That was the very, very wet one, wasn't it? Trying to remember now. Yes, I think it was. And that was turned into a rather disastrous year for everybody, frankly, but also tricky as far as the 24H series was concerned, because we had Dubai in 2020 and then we didn't have another race till June, which was the Portimao 24 hours. And that event not able to take place today, but it is brilliant nevertheless to have near neighbours Spain back on the calendar for 2021. Golf all over the curbs. This is on the infield section of the lap, and the number 1 car, driven by Emil Heyerdahl, clearly not too happy about being pipped at the moment to provisional pole by 0.129 of a second. So Heyerdahl has done the outlap, I believe, yes, and is now hustling on to a quick one. 156.992 was his effort earlier on in the session. The outlap, after a pause in the pits of about 4 minutes, has been done, and now a 34.5 through the first sector is a decent one indeed for Norwegian driver Emil Heyerdahl. So, as I say, only trying to find less than a 10th and a half to get back up ahead Mathieu Detry, and Detry now in turn not in a position to respond because he's in the pits along with Laurent Flusser-Cross in the Bapora Motorsport Cupra that we've spoken a little bit about already. Bob Stevens heading back into the session, as is Colin White and Paul Celies, another Dutch driver for Autorama Motorsport. Very refreshing to see a number of new names, though, joining established teams for this well-recognised event, John.
Yeah, always a good entry for this. It's a great time of the year to be here, and this is the traditional time. First weekend in September has clashed with other events in the past, but a slightly less busy weekend this year. Not quite the amount of local teams. The Royal Automobile Club of Catalonia, whose event effectively this is, with a great history in this event, and graciously allowing Creventic on board a few years ago to bring their teams in as well. And we've seen upwards of 40, 50 cars here in the past. It is an event that the locals are tremendously well behind, although bizarrely we start with a few thousand people in the stands, and then round about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, when everyone's had their Saturday evening meal, all of a sudden the car parks are full, and by midnight the place is jumping, JP.
Yeah, I know. A number of times I've been across to the grandstand that overlooks that remodelled section, which is a great overtaking opportunity, and deliberately through the course of the years a grandstand was constructed because it was realised that was a very good spectator point. And yeah, the busiest time is often Saturday night about 10, half 10 in the evening. Yeah. When everyone's had their siesta, they've had a bit of evening meal, and then go and watch the motor racing to midnight or beyond. That's just in the Spanish culture, and great that kind of happened in the past. I'm just looking at the numbers of cars we had actually the last running when this was an event in the Creventic season. 38 classified finishers, but there were unfortunately there were 8 retirements as well. So 46 cars we had a couple of years ago, and clearly the championship is back to a normal schedule now, having had a race meeting more or less once a month up until Hockenheim. Then there's been the difficulty since then in solidifying a round 5. This was always kind of positioned as a round 5 or round 6, depending on how we went. But brilliant to be back here, as I say, and it's only going to be a short wait at the end of this 24 hours to the 12 hours of Ennepegusa, the Copa Florio event, for the second running of that. On to 10 minutes
JP.
gone. Okay, John, yes. Who's that?
156.3, and it's Emil Heyerdahl. Obviously stunned into action there, chasing, as you said, in the number 1 Autorama car, signifying their championship win from the last full season that we had in that Autorama Golf. Now down to a 56.3. That's now 3/4 of a second ahead of AC Motorsports Audi, which is just going back out again, still in the hands of Mathieu Detrey.
And Mathieu, has started races on the front row before. Need to look at whether he's managed a pole position, because this potentially could be a first, I suppose. AC Motorsport have had plenty of different drivers through the course of this year, including Vincent Rademacher. But Detrey, pretty much an ever-present, having done, yes, all 4 of the opening races to this point, and all in the Audi RS3 LMS with the DSG gearbox. Silver-rated driver. But yeah, this is the point in the session now where times really start to count, because your rivals are going to have less and less time to fight back. Detrey slipping to 3rd position now. Within class he's still 2nd, but that's because Colin White popped up with a 156.826 to go with the quickest lap in that Ginetta so far, and therefore the best TCX lap. So we have one of each class now on the provisional front row, John.
Yeah, Colin turning up the wick just a little bit, and indeed just cutting by the other car in TCX, the BMW, of which we spoke earlier. That is the number 221, and that's the relatively new shape, that, of course, the M2 CS, running for Team AGP Tangerine Associates, running under a US entry with 2 Americans, Jim Norman, who we've talked about quite a lot in the past, all arms, by the way, with Catsby Jones, Catsby also from the US, and Wim Spinoy from Belgium in that car as well. So just the 3 drivers there, so that's quite a lot of work they've got to do. At least that's what I've got on my entry list at the moment. If only we'd known. We could have sent Nick with his race kit and a licence. Wouldn't have been his, of course. But he could put a moustache on or something. Across the line then for Colin, and another improvement that takes him to the top of the category, JP.
Yeah, very good time for the man from Glastonbury in the UK. Colin's just done a 155.962 and has gone, well, at least green through all of the sectors, and purple, in fact, through sector 1. So a 33.351 now represents the best lap of any of the cars in this session, and he is just over 0.4 of a second clear of Emil Heyerdahl in the best of the TCRs now, with the Volkswagen Golf GTI TCR DSG for Autorama Motorsport. Mathieu Detrey is still circulating. He's on lap 9, lap 10 in fact, of the session, and the AC Motorsport Audi 0.7 of a second now shy of Colin White's time. Only half a second away from Emil Heyerdahl's effort though, as Detrey goes through with a slower lap that time, just over 2 minutes. Drivers behind him are improving, like Paul Salias and like Jorge Belloc Ruiz as well, in the rail equipped by Totcar Sport Cupra. So it's a VW Golf best of the TCRs from the Audi RS3 of AC Motorsport, the sister Golf from Autorama, and then the 3 Cupras all in a line or in a column together, with rail equip ahead of Bapora and the Baz Kooten racing car of Bob Stevens that set the initial pace, because Bob was one of the first cars out there. The Tangerine Associates team, by the way, have got the honour of winning that heavily rained off Dubai 24 hours at the start of last year. because they managed to win the TCX category with their BMW as Team ACP Tangerine Associates. That's the first I have of that team ever being established. So I think that was their first race, and since then haven't been regulars with the Creventic Series. In fact, this will be their first race of the 2021 season, so it's great to have the Americans back again. No ST Racing I've spotted, whereas the Canadian outfit have done the series all the way through the year. Unfortunately, we're missing them here in Spain.
Well, they are there.
Are they?
Well, I saw Sam Tan.
Yeah. Maybe they're in the GT class then now. They always traditionally run in the TCEs, but Samantha Tan is on the entry list, yeah?
They're running an M4 GT4 with Chandler Hull, John Miller and Nick Wittmer. Another one of the Racing Whitmer. So Kumo and Kyle and Nick, all racing family. See those two Canadians in IMSA racing in the past, Nick in it as well, and Samantha Tan, ST, is in GT4 number 38, so we'll see her. I'd seen her on social media,
yes,
saying how lovely the weather was before Nick got there.
I am remembering now, I think, an exclusive that we got here on the Radio Show Limited Network that said last time out, but it was in May, so you can forgive me for forgetting
That's
this.
all right.
At Hockenheimring, they said they would be back out again, but in a different car, a brand new car, which would put them into the GT series. So I'm glad you were paying attention. And yeah, just remembered that fact almost 4 months on from them
Is that
stating
the last
that.
time?
Yeah.
The last time we had a Creventic 24-hour Hankook 24-hour series race.
23rd of
weird
May.
weekend.
23rd of May it was, yeah.
That was a raining on and off weekend, wasn't it? Which was very difficult for the teams, and we had some great support races there. And we've got the Alpine A110 Cup here as well, the European Alpine Cup, where Johnny and I will be bringing that to you as well a little bit later on. 2 races this weekend, one in between this qualifying session, these 2 qualifying sessions, and night practice, which is always great to watch here at Barcelona, and then one tomorrow morning before the return of Damon sashing up a grid. Come on, admit it, you've all been waiting for it to return. The only grid walk that counts, with due respect to Martin Brundle and anyone else who works in Formula One. The one you've really been missing is Nick Damon's dancing with the cars down the pit straight, and that will be tomorrow, of course, but I'm at half an hour before green flag. At RSL_studio, hashtag RSLB24 if you want to get in touch with us as well.
We've had some likely impersonators of Nick this year. Lucas Gajewski springs to mind, clambering out of the safety car boot just before his pit walk, but nothing's quite like Damon. There is nothing quite like a Damon.
There's nothing like
say.
a Damon. Yeah, indeed. Nothing in the world.
Nothing in the world.
No.
125 is still Bob Stevens and running in 7th position. Catesby Jones behind on the timing screen has parked it certainly for the session now, with only 40 seconds left on the clock. Anders Fender is technically a new name at the top of the times, but that's only because he's switched from Colin White. So Colin bringing the car in and giving Angus a couple of laps just to, I suppose, work out how much grip there is now that a bit more rubber has gone down, and this will have made a difference. 90 minutes of running in free practice earlier for the track 2. I'm sure started pretty green this morning, although there was some out of meeting practice runs yesterday, I believe, but that might not have been all on Hankook rubber, of course, whereas the free practice session had to be, as did this as well. The 2 30-minute sessions, and as John mentioned, more practice later on tonight as well in darkness hours.
Check the flags out, JP.
Okay, and a very late change indeed, as you said that, John. Mathieu Detry has gone across the line and snatches 2nd position by 92 thousandths of a second. So Detry going over the line in the AC Motorsport Audi to bag what would appear to be the TCR podium, because Emil Heyerdahl is in the pits, Paul Salias is in the pits, and I don't think Jorge Belloc-Ruiz or Laurent Flusser-Cross are going quite quickly enough to be able to pip Mathieu Detry to that title. So a 156.867 should just about do it, as everybody else that's already crossed the line but not yet seen the checkered flag will be able to have this lap timed. Angus Fender, well, running the risk of going a little faster than Colin White here, because he's gone quicker than his teammate through the middle sector, and a 155.962 is the time to beat. But Fender across the line to take the checkered flag in the black 278 Ginetta, and cannot go faster, but he was certainly pushing there and did go at least through the middle sector quicker than Colin. Nick's wasting no time at all. Should have a driver to chat to very swiftly indeed, but just want to make sure that everybody has crossed the line and that we aren't going to get any final changes. 151 is the last car that will head across the line, and yeah, let's say that Laurent Flusser-Cross won't take pole position, because the man that has is now chatting to Nick.
He's disappeared off. Come on, it's too busy to even
sorry.
wait. Oh, got him. You strung it out far too long there. I was there, I was with him, and you just wanted to be sure. Colin, oh well, another pole.
Maybe, I think so. We've got to look at it in a minute just to make sure we're correct. But yeah, the car was really good. So fingers crossed for everything to be right.
First time on the slightly changed layout here at Barcelona. Is it better? Is it worse?
It's different. It's safer coming out the corners. It's still the same problem getting in, but coming out is much, much easier, and there's more chance of overtaking somebody, so it's more interesting.
24-hour race. I mean, it's a big challenge, and obviously the Ginetta has historically had driveline issues. Are you on top of those yet?
Fingers crossed. Yeah, we've gone through all the permutations, and sort of like I said, fingers crossed. This is a good track. It's a safe track. You can run around the and you know, keep off the curbs. Everything should be good.
Colin, thank
Colin White chatting to Nick Damon. He very nearly escaped out the back of the garage, but Nick was able to doorstep him and bring him back to the pit lane. And Mathieu Detry then taking pole position with his teammates Stefan Perrin, James Kay and Vincent Rademacher. As mentioned, the Belgian has been part of that team already this year as well. Autorama Motorsport might be a little disappointed there to have missed out on pole position, but they do at least feature on the second row within the TCE series, the number one ahead of the 112 then for positions 3 and 4. 156.9 for Emil Heyerdahl and a 157.8 for Paul Salias. Two Spanish teams on the third row, the 1, 2, 3 Rail Equipe by Top Car Sport and the Bopora Motorsport Cupras, both TCR DSG specs, and it was Jorge Belloc Ruiz, who interestingly is listed twice there against the 1, 2, 3 car, unless there's two of them.
No, there's a Diaz and a Ruiz.
You're
Belloc
right.
Diaz and Jorge Belloc Ruiz. I noticed that when I was looking through it. It's it's like the Manel Lau Gurina and Manel Lau Cornago, excuse me, in the 151 car. We've got a lot of very similar names.
I will be paying attention to that later on in the day, therefore. Yes, I sort of scanned over the third name, but you're right, Diaz and Ruiz, and it was Ruiz who did the time, 158.716. Laurent Flusser-Cross, a 158.864. Bob Stevens in the Baz Cooten Racing number 125 yellow and black Cupra, 7th, with a 2 minutes .166, and the 221 Team ACP Tangerine Associates BMW M2 did a 2 minutes .897, and that was Catesby Jones who set the time, who's joined by Jim Norman and Wim Spinoy. So that is the grid, somewhat provisional for the time being, and I only put in that little caveat because there seemed to be a bit of doubt in Colin White's mind as to whether their lap might be a legal one. Was that a track limits problem, do you think, John?
Yeah, there was a lot of cars that were being pinged at various times, but I've just checked through and I can't see Colin's car on there. The 112 and 188 cars being the Autorama car and the 118 is must be 188, excuse me, because that's AC. They both got penalties, and they need to confirm the receipt of that penalty, but I can't see anything for the 278. And just from our colleagues at Hankook 24-hour series, the Creventic organisers, ST Racing, Sam Tan, has been competing in the GT4 class since the beginning of this year with the M4 GT4, apart from the 6 hours of Abu Dhabi, which was the non-championship race, when they won the TC class. So that they have been running that BMW for quite a while. And I do wonder, by the way, if that ACP Tangerine Associates car, listed as an M2 CS, I wonder if that's a conversion from an old 240 Cup car, because they did have one of those, and they've recently, the multicoloured 240 Cup car, they've recently released that onto a number of racing platforms as a livery. It may be a completely different vehicle, and I'm prepared to accept that as well, but it is interestingly listed as the 450 horsepower car, but listed as an M2 CS competition sport or club sport for ACP Tangerine Associates, the 221 car. So what's next then, JP?
30 minutes of GT series qualifying, during which we will see the ST Racing BMW of Samantha Tan et al. There was an announcement that happened at Hockenheim Ring. Obviously, that wasn't about a new car, but they maybe they were just confirming that they would definitely be doing the rest of the campaign.
Of the season.
Yes. Yeah. And during Hockenheim, we didn't even know which races that was going to involve, of course. But
we've got to say, JP, fair play to the teams and the organisers. It's been a summer of uncertainty, hasn't it, in Europe? And even as we're talking right now, there's talk of the EU asking their member countries to reimpose the former protocols on people travelling in from places like, for example, the US, and tighten things back up again. So there's been huge amounts of uncertainty, and trying to plan for races, and you have been involved in other championships, and we've been calling races for other championships. You've been doing some travelling where it's been possible. I mean, the business of racing has actually done okay out of this, and I think has been a good example of what can be achieved if you are prepared to be flexible and dynamic.
I agree. You need some warning as to where you need, a trailer, your car, the team, and logistically how you're going to get there from your headquarters. Being one or two people heading to a job to commentate on a race is a heck of a lot easier than trying to get a team of 40, 50 people in some cases to an event. And it is very difficult, I suppose, to juggle the events that a track is trying to put on and the conflicts that other championships can provide. But it's brilliant to have Barcelona, a Grade 1 circuit, a current Grand Prix venue, back on the calendar. We've had a number of those already this season as part of the 24H series event. And credit to Creventic, because if there was going to be a race put on in the last couple of months, they were fully committed to it. It's just that the pieces couldn't slot into place in time for Portimao, for example, but I know that was desperately wanted by the drivers. There was also some talk of us going back to Mugello at one point as well for a second visit to Tuscany, which we certainly wouldn't have turned down given the opportunity. But there is still a second trip to Italy expected next month to Enopegusa for the second running of the Coppa Florio, and of course the end of season flyaway race, which has in the past run at COTA in Austin, Texas, but this time will be at Sebring as things are planned for the 24-hour race there in November. So still lots to look forward to. New cars on the horizon and your old favourites as well. Including
for ST Racing. So you had remembered correctly that they're coming back next year in 2022, but they are stepping up the GT3 with the brand new M4 GT3, and not one, two of them. That Canadian team then, which dates back their competitive streak in this championship dates back to 2019 at the Circuit of the Americas. This is their first full season. They took a GT4 class win in Dubai, so they're stepping up, and they're sitting actually not that far away from Duo Racing in the GT4 class standings. I think they're just 9 points away from the lead. So expect to see ST then with two, not one, but two new cars for next year. So both of our memories have not failed us. We just remembered two halves of a different story, sort of.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
That's 50% failure, but 50% success at the same time. So I'll grab the second one of those. Thank you very much.
But if we both were 50% right, does that make us 100% right if you add us together? You see, it's a team effort, JP.
Yeah, oh yeah, entirely. Always has been. It means we've got one decent memory between us, John. Just
yes,
consider
right.
that whilst we head to the pit lane and to Nick Damon ahead of times coming in the GT Series session, Nick.
Yeah, welcome back down to the sunny, well, actually it's the overcast pit lane here. In brilliant timing, what I was going to show you was literally just here. But then about 30 seconds, whilst you decide to compare bad memories, and let's be honest, I'd be the third part of a triumph through the appalling memories, it left. So I couldn't show it to you, so I'll show you something else instead. Which is the 499, the GT4 version of the Audi R8. Because what I wanted to show you was a new Audi R8 LMS. We'll do that at night practice, it's fine. That doesn't look like it's going anywhere for qualifying. Now, of course, after the Amuse-Bouche, it was the TCE qualifying with just 8 or 9 cars. We've now got 24 cars in many classes, so it's been a much busier session out on the track. And just to give you a bit of a clue, a number of times during the various practice sessions so far this weekend, a certain Mr. 91 Renauer has been top of the timesheets, but who knows?
Well, yeah, that's true enough. Renauers are always fast around here, whether it's Mr. Robert or Mr. Alfred, and we saw, in fact, both in action during the weekend of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, because Alfred was entered into the Le Mans Cup races, the 2 55-minute affairs, as the support package, and Robert Renauer in the GTE car as part of the 24 Hours in France. But back to GT3 machinery now, and the session earlier on today, a free practice session, was actually topped by Pierre Caffa in the number 18 Audi, number 92 Porsche sneaking up the inside of the much talked about BMW from the ST Racing crew. Second fastest in this morning's session, or this afternoon session, early this afternoon session, was the number 22 Ferrari for Georg and Leo Weiss, Jochen Krumbach and Daniel Kylwitz. And it is Kylwitz at the wheel of the 22 WTM powered by Phoenix Ferrari. Interesting that Wochenspiegel team Monschau now, of course, prepared by the Phoenix Racing crew rather than Rinaldi Racing, but sticking with the Ferrari. So Phoenix Racing more associated with the Four Rings, but they prepare LMP3 cars for the WTM powered by Phoenix crew as part of the Le Mans Cup through the course of the year, and Leo Weiss drives one of those. But Daniel Kylwitz, more of a GT3 specialist, out for qualifying. The treble 9 Bashar Mardini driven Red Camel Jordans.nl Porsche running now in third position as initial times start to come through, and the blue and white Audi back on pit road is the car collection machine. Just looking to see who's been put into that. Max Edelhoff as part of the car collection motorsport Audi R8 LMS GT3 with the Kerchhofer sponsorship as usual. So there's plenty here, John, that have the potential of being certainly on the front couple of rows. This is a tough session to call.
And three different classes here as well. GT3, and it is now called GT3, has been for a wee while in Creventic 24-hour series events. They should be at the front of the field, and indeed the WTM powered by Phoenix Daniel Kylwitz Ferrari is at the moment on a 1:46.7 fastest. In GTX True Racing, Klaus Angerhofer has one of the fantastic KTM Crossboard GTXs, of which we have legion this year. Also got a couple of Vortices, I suppose we'd have to call them, in that GTX category as well. 712 and 701 running second and third. In GT4, ST Racing Nick Whitmer driving the ST Racing GT4 ahead of the RHC Jorgensen Strom with Brett Strom. So two North American teams, Canadian and US based teams there, first and second. And of course the 991 Cup class as well, the Vili Motorsport by EB Motors, Porsches, and this, you've got to have a speed lover Porsche. I think that is part of the regulations for 24-hour racing under the Hankook banner.
The name against the new Audi is Martin Lechman, who, yes, is on a quick lap now, car number 500. I seem to remember when the Mercedes, the Mercedes AMG Evo first appeared at Portimao, that was numbered 500 as well. So reserved for brand new cars, not yet eligible for the GT3 category. The treble 9 Red Camel Jordans.nl Porsche is in, with Ivo Breukers looking on. Bashar Mardini, their driver, that has brought it in.
Interesting. That's an interesting car, that because that is one of the new for 2021 992 Cup class cars. Completely new platform, new aero, still using the venerable 4-litre engine, just over 500 horsepower, much the same as you can have in the road car, but distinctive from the other Cup cars. You will see here the 991.2s. Look at the rear wing. It has a what some people call a swan neck, a drop mounted rear wing. So the wing is actually below the stanchions and the fixings. Also a slightly different front end. The whole bodywork is different. It's a full wide body car, as all of the 992s are. Different front track, and even the road cars now in that version have got full wishbone front suspension. It is a very sophisticated machine indeed, and as far as I'm aware, it's running in GTX because it can't run in the 991 Cup class because it's a 992 car. But I think that might be the first 992 Cup car that's escaped out of Porsche competition, out of Carrera Cup competition.
Tim reminds us that it's not, I don't think it's been in the championship all season, because it ran as part of the Porsche Benelux races that I also called on my visit to the Red Bull Ring earlier this year, when they were supporting the European Le Mans series. It did those events, and I'll have to dig through the paperwork to find out who was driving it in Austria, and then went straight to the Netherlands, or possibly even to the track that it was then due to be racing at, which might have been Hockenheim, actually.
It was Hockenheim.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
So it's done Hockenheim, and it's now about to do its second round of the season. So not quite all year. One race in the books.
Fair play to the guys for getting it captured.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we haven't even, in the Porsche Carrera Cup GP, we don't have those cars yet. They're still racing with the previous model.
Yep.
There are only 5 Carrera Cups around the world, if you count Super Cup as one. The Porsche Carrera Cup Asia racing in Ningbo this weekend with three races. We'll have some coverage of that, which handily, mostly, in fact all of them fall in times when we're not on the air for this race. Porsche Carrera Cup North America, Super Cup I mentioned, Carrera Cup Deutschland, and Carrera Cup Benelux as well. Those are the 5 Carrera Cups that have the 992. Everybody else will get them at the end of this season. So they are much sought after, those cars, and I'm told by those who have driven them back to back, JP, that the lap times are unrecognisable from the old car. They are much quicker, seconds quicker, and are very close to a Porsche GT3 class 991. Now I accept that Porsche used GT3 as nomenclature for pretty much everything, but in terms of the category, the class of racing car, the 993 class the GT3 class as the cars at the front of the field. Those new 992 Cup cars are just as quick as those, and available. I'm told that 992 Cup car will be available on iRacing from Wednesday, with the deal that Porsche now have with iRacing. So that car is ready. So don't take my word for it. Do yourself a bit of back-to-back testing on iRacing, which is what Nick will be doing when he gets back to Damon, the hamlet of Damon.
Nicely put. He needs to have a word with Evo then to find out the little secrets of that car and utilise them in the virtual world. I think the older spec Cup car had a slight problem with understeer during some setups, and the active suspension on that car now has really cured that and taken Cup car racing within Porsche's ranks just onto another level, as you say, almost comparable now to GT3 running. And I mean, through the tubes, down the tubes, it will be outpacing a GT3, I would have thought. Far less aero on it.
Yeah, a little bit less aero, you're right, but also for the first time, all the pro classes in Cup and in Carrera Cup, those cars have all got ABS. That is a part of that car which, in Porsche Carrera Cup terms, I think there was only 1 year where all the main Carrera Cups around the world had it, and it was the first year of the 996, so that would have been 97, 98. I drove one of those cars at Brands Hatch back in those days, long before my Porsche Odyssey started with road cars. And I remember asking Kelvin Burt, who'd been a champion, I think, the previous season, so what about this ABS then? And he went, I've no clue, I've never driven one with that on. And I said, so do I want to, and then he went out and drove one and came out and said, don't get into the ABS. If you're in the ABS, you're going off. Now things have changed since then, because all ABS systems have got a lot better, and that whether it's road or race, but the race systems are far more sophisticated now. Just on 17 minutes to go, and it's Ferrari, Porsche, Audi at the top of the field, JP.
Daniel Kravitz in the 22 WTM Ferrari, fastest then, 146.740. Mauro Calamia, car number 7, is the Dynamic Motorsport Porsche of Italy, although Calamia very much Swiss, and running a second behind pretty much the pace of Daniel Kravitz. Marco Seefried in the number 92 Porsche, also now in the pit lane, as the top 3 cars are. That's the Herbert Motorsport Porsche number 92, and then the car collection Audi of Max Edelhoff that came out initially, then came into the pits after only a handful of laps, and is the only one of the top, well, pretty much the top 10 currently running. Robert Renauer makes it now 2 of the top 10 cars on the timing screen that are putting in laps, but this is almost the, not per the regulations, but a standard interval, if you like, between 2 quick runs where you switch Hankook tyres and you can go again on fresh rubber now. So don't be surprised to see Kravitz, Calavia, Seefried, Paul-Luc Chatin, the number 17 Edex Sport Mercedes, Pierre Caffer, who topped free practice, and the rest of them coming back out again to try and better the times already set. Shame to see that the 499 car collection Motorsport Audi isn't yet part of the session, nor the Duvo Racing Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, which is a standard 991 class car, unlike the Red Camel machines. Let's go to Nick Damon, as we've had nearly 15 minutes of the session, for a quick update from the pits.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, of course, we know that there's another motor race going on up in the Netherlands, and it appears that everyone has embraced orange, because all the Vortexes are bright orange, all the KTMs are bright orange. There's 2 or 3 cars up in the TCR that's bright orange. It appears that orange is the colour of the weekend. The KTMs are pretty impressive. One of the stars of the show, I think he may just have meandered the back there, is Miguel Oliveira, who is, of course, the MotoGP racer. Though, never fear, my intention is to give him a good grilling during night practice when I've got a chance to have a chat with him properly, as there are many other drivers. Oh, there's the new GT3 Audi going. There we are. Spot the difference. We'll play that later as well. Night practice basically is just going to be me pointing at stuff and talking to people, I've decided. There we are, Johnny.
I like it. Stickered tyres as well for the 500 numbered Audi. And this is Martin Lechman then in the P4 class Car Collection Motorsport entry, according to P4, because this is at the moment outside of current GT3 regulations, but looks mega. You would expect that to be the case from the company with the 4 rings and taking the Audi R8 LMS to another level, to the Evolution 2 level, in fact. There will have been some balance of performance to ensure, I would assume, John, that this new car won't be in a position to win the race, and therefore it won't be quite as quick as the current Audis, but a fantastic, again, for Creventic to be able to display the next wave of GT3 car.
And how many times has this happened, Johnny? These are real endurance races, perhaps slightly, and I say this not in any detrimental way, but slightly under less pressure from the manufacturers. We've seen BMW debut the BMW GT4 at Dubai. We've seen Audi with the RS3, in fact, the TCR car, which ran in the TCR series and in the main race. In fact, one of the cars ran in both. And of course, Mercedes. I like Mercedes' attitude. We're bringing it to their own competitors already, who already had their car. We're bringing one of these cars to the race. Would you like to do a stint in it, and basically put your name down, and we'll work out a schedule? So they entered the car, and effectively their current customers, various drivers through the race, had a run in it at. Now that's going to fail me. Where was that when they did that, JP?
I think it was Portimao.
Yes, you're right, it was. Absolutely right.
Because Hubert Haupt was part of that lineup, and
correct. Very clever.
No, really cool.
That was a sales pitch as well as an opportunity for the car to run.
Charlie Putman was part of the lineup as well, and then went on and bought one. So,
exactly. So, ka-ching. And in fact, the previous model of the GT4 car, that raced in GTX at Kota in the race that I raced, which seems like a million years ago now, which I think was 2017 or 2018. Can't remember that far back now. There's memory gone again.
Robert Renaud is now fastest, by the way, just doing a 1:46.587 in the 91 Herbert Motorsport Porsche. So Herbert are first and fourth, and that knocks the Ferrari from WTM powered by Phoenix down to second place. Daniel Kylwitz still in the pit lane. Is the plan to get that German Ferrari, if you know what I mean, German run Ferrari, back out onto the track? Let's wait and see, but there are 3 cars on the timing screen, all with the letter P next to them, that have the capability of going a shade faster, I would suggest. Mauro Calamia's number 7 Porsche. So that's an Italian Porsche and a German Ferrari that we have in this year's entry, John. Phenomenal.
Yeah, and a number of people pointing out the differences between how the pit lane looks here to what it was in Le Mans a couple of weeks ago. No fuel in the pit lane here. Thank you for your tweet at RSL_studio, hashtag RSLB24. No fueling in the pit lane, so that removes quite a lot of cost actually from racing it, because you don't need a fuel rig. The series effectively provides the fuel rigs, and that's in a separate place. It also means that your team don't have to wear fireproof overalls and things like goggles and things like that. Now, it doesn't mean you can't if you don't want. If you want to, that's absolutely fine. But there's no mandated need for you to do that. And you'll see quite a lot of people in fairly casual gear down in the pit lane doing their works, but the mechanics almost always still have gloves on because everything's very, very hot indeed. These new KTMs look very good indeed. They're not all orange, but the 716 is pretty sort of dark orange as it heads down the back straight at the moment towards the re-profile braking area at what has effectively become turn 10, isn't it, down there? And turn 11 has sort of disappeared, the little kink.
And the best of those Austrian cars made in Graz in Austria, the KTM Crossbow GTX, as they're called. The best is the True Racing example, which is car number 716 for Ferdinand Stuck. That is actually the fastest car in GTX as a category, although there are more than just the KTMs found there. The two Vortex of Vortex V8, Team Vortex V8, currently 6th and 7th in GTX.
True Racing and RTR projects have been long-time exponents, haven't they, JP, of KTMs, of the crossbows in various forms. These new GTX cars are sort of, there was a thought that we might get a GT4 or even a GT3 crossbow, and they were working towards that with the original crossbows running with Audi 4-cylinder 2-litre engine. There was some thought now, and I have to check this, is whether they've gone to the straight 5 in these cars, because they were trying also to build a GT2 with 700 horsepower for one of Stefan Rittel's championships, and the 4-cylinder engine wasn't quite up to that, or at least it could do it, but just for a short amount of time before spectacularly it wasn't producing any horsepower at all.
I know what you mean.
Miming pulling the pin out of a grenade with my teeth at this point.
Yeah. I'm sure I've seen something referring to the straight 5 as the powertrain, but for these new cars, not sure. 2-litre Audi turbocharged straight 4 initially, and then it was the TFSI inline 5 up to 2.5 litre. Indeed, yeah. 2012 to present, but I don't know about this the GTX car and whether that's included. Added to the lineup last year.
Yeah,
and 600 brake.
Right. Oh yes, this is they've kept hold of this canopy that they've got, sort of like a jet fighter canopy. It has got opening windows now as well. There's a carbon frame now with a windshield and sort of glass doors as well on either side of glass windows. And they've got 6 piston brakes at the front, 4 at the back, and it's absolutely phenomenal. 120 litre tank. It weighs, by the way, without fuel, 1,048 kilograms, and puts out 530 horsepower at 6,500 revs. Love it.
That's not much lighter than one of the Toyota GR010s, 1040 kilos.
But it's a GT4 car.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
effectively
to give you the comparison to a hypercar, pretty much in terms of weight, anyway. The car
and
is.
What a hypercar have 700 all up by the time you add in your ICE and any electrical energy that you've got. So they're not that far away from the engine power of the Toyota as well.
Yeah,
I think they're a potent little machine. I think they look great.
They're great.
Well,
they sound fabulous, and I mean still very, very futuristic. They always have been. With I assume it's still a clamshell roof.
It is, yeah.
So hinges just in front of the driving position.
It's what they call the jet fighter canopy, and it's been slightly, as I said, it's just been slightly modified in the GTX. So there's a separate windscreen, and the actual side windows do pop open. So if you need to, you could get in and out of them as quote-unquote doors, but the whole thing still moves. It's a very clever design. Very clever. I'm told by Tim Cray that the KTM Crossbow is the same weight as a Nissan Micra, just slightly more powerful, I would have thought.
Just a little.
And slightly more dashing, dare I say, in the car park if your local Sainsbury's or the supermarkets are available.
You would certainly be able to dash to the supermarket a heck of a lot quicker in a KTM.
5 minutes to go, JP.
Daniel Karlwitz, the 32-year-old then from Villingen in Germany, gold graded, not surprising therefore that he's been put out for qualifying, but still only second fastest. He's in the car still though, on the pit apron, and that car possibly about to be fitted with tyres, but they can't afford to hang around there at Phoenix. Glockenspiegel Team Monschau, powered by Phoenix and their Ferrari 488, outpacing a car more familiar with Phoenix, which is the Audi, but that's the Rutronic Racing by TECE Audi R8 LMS GT3. Now, Daniel's Ferrari has got some tyres. Revs rise, and he will be going back out into the session. 4 minutes to go, so that's an out lap, which is probably the best part of 2 minutes, and he'll get maybe 2 laps, therefore, to try and improve on the 146.740, depending on where the checkered flag falls and whether he can come out of the final corner, needing to be careful there not to cross the blend line, particularly so because he was being overtaken by a KTM Crossbow at the time. And there's a bit of a pinch point down there at the first corner as everyone jumps towards the apex. Robert Renauer staying in the pits for the time being. 146.587 is Robert's best effort in the number 91 Porsche of Herbert Motorsport, and only able to lean on a 10th and a half at this stage back to Kyle Witz, Pierre Caffer, who's a further half second adrift, but he's just done his best lap of the session, 147.310, and it was Caffer who topped free practice earlier on. That was a session that started at 1:30 local this afternoon. Somebody else to look out for potentially is Paul-Luc Chatin. Welcome back to the championship for the Frenchman in the number 17 Edex Sport Mercedes, but that car is also in the pits as well, so we may not be seeing the all-red AMG GT3. Really has got about a minute or so to make sure that you're guaranteed a fast lap, and Daniel Karvitz leaping on the brakes more so than I would have expected into the tricky left-hander by the giant grandstand, and that was, I think, to generate just a bit of track space between the nose of his Ferrari and those cars he was following.
17 cars showing in the pits. Now, what I don't know, of course, is whether that is 17 of all of the categories or 17 from this category, but at the moment there's a mix at the top of the field with the Daniel Kalvitz driven WTM powered by Phoenix Ferrari coming out now. That's a 2020 Evolution car, but Renauer is in the pit lane, and I don't think that number 91 car is coming back out again, so there'll be no further times for that. In the classes, GTX RTR Projects, Eric Yanis leads for that crossbar. That's the 718. Just going back out, Ferdinand Stuck in the True Racing 716 car. He's going to have a crack at that. He needs to find all of 0.003 of a second well, it's Martin Lechman who is driving, no, he's in the pits now in what is termed a P4 car, which is the Car Collection Motorsport Run Evo 2 Audi R8, but that is literally in a class of its own. In 991, Vili Motorsport by EB Motors is leading. That's in the pits, the number 955 car. Who else is out? The second of the Vortex is out, Boris Gimond in the 712, trying to improve from 7th in GTX. Speed Lover and Rabdan by MRS, both in the pits in the 991 categories. Oh, and GT4, both the BMWs are in the pits from ST and RHC, so I think it's only what we've got on the track now, JP, with a minute to go.
Yeah, Andrei Mukavoz was late to join the session in the Duvo Racing Porsche, but now has set that car's best time, 157.644, puts the car fourth in the 991 class, but it's Nikolai Sergui, the Romanian driver, 955, that has set the best time in that part of the qualifying, and I think we're unlikely to see 955 in the session again. Just 25 seconds left on the clock. Daniel Kalvitz goes across the line. Well, he's had almost another sighter lap in the number 22 Ferrari. That is not a better time than Robert Renauer, but he's got one more go at this. Oh, looked a little bit crossed up into the first corner and again leaving turns 1 and 2. So an indication of how hard Daniel Kalvitz is pushing, but it was a bit scrappy, I have to admit, and I just wonder whether this first sector of the final tour for Daniel Kalvitz is going to provide a sector time that's quite good enough. No, 31.0. By my reckoning, he's lost 0.4 of a second already trying to catch Robert Renauer's time, John.
Down to turn 5, tricky downhill braking area. takes the curb on the left-hand side and runs out onto the red and white curb. I think he's off it. I think he's lifted off. He's obviously got the delta on the dashboard as he climbs up through 7 and 8 and to the very fast sweeping right-hander at the top of the hill at 9. Real commitment corner that. And, well, no, he's still on it. He's run onto the green. He was very tidy then coming out with 5. Now down into the heavy braking area at turn 10. Clips the curb on the inside, breathes in the middle, then straightens it up for what really would have been a tighter turn at 11. Climbing the hill now, hugs the inside red and white curb through 12, now into 13 at the top of the hill. Really wish they'd go straight on there like the motorcycles do and then run down without the final chicane, except they'd probably arrive at the final corner far too quickly. Now, question is, JP, is he going to peel into the pit lane? I think he is. Yeah, he has.
Yeah, I got the feeling just from the pace of the car that he'd got off the throttle actually into turn 13 as you were describing his run through the chicane, and he'd lost about a second in the middle sector to Robert Renauer's in-lap, because Robert did a 41.1 through sector 2 as the route back into the pits at the end of his session. And as I say, Karlovic was about a second shy of that, so wasn't going to turn that into a very special lap, unfortunately, for Karlovic and the WTM powered by Phoenix crew. They will have to make do with probably second, unless the 92 car of Marco Seefried. Now, he's already seen the checkered flag, and everybody else has either done so or they are in the pits. So that will confirm pole position to the sister car at Herbert Motorsport, not the one with the yellow door mirrors, but the 91 car of Robert Renauer. And unsurprisingly, perhaps Renauer getting the Herbert Motorsport crew another pole position to add to their increasing total. Despite the fact that Marco Seefried is on an in-lap here, he's still pushing like crazy in Porsche number 92, John.
He's laying down some Hankook rubber as he hammers around the circuit. Also still out there with the four-way flashes on is the 999, which is the red Camel Jordan car. Ivo Breukers at the wheel. Now, I'm slightly worried by that, not because I think he's banged the button, but there is an automatic four-way flasher, hazard flasher type thing if you have a spin or an incident on those cars. So I wonder if he has actually been off the track in that GT silver. That's the colour that they were all supplied in. So not their usual orange in that car, although we do have orange detailing on it and still have the red Camel logo on there. He's laying back as he just went through where Seefried laid down the tortured Hankook. Meant to mention this, there are no tyre regs in the qualifying, so you could have used a couple of different ones. Now, Nick was trying to grab our pole sitter in GT3, but in typical form, he's there, he's back, he's wrangled him. Robert Renauer is with Nick.
He's just gone to get a mask, actually. So in these it's my first experience of modern interview delaying techniques. I need a mask, and here he is.
Okay, I was just about to do a quick rundown because we got the graphic, Nick. But let's do the interview first, and then we can do the official results from the session.
Well, Robert, I was watching the progress of the car all through the last couple of days, and you seem to be able to be top of the timesheets. You're really suiting this track, aren't you?
Yeah, it's a good track for us. We won here 2 times, I think. We were strong the whole weekend, and yeah, it was a really good qualifying for us. We did only one shot, so all in this one shot, and yeah, it worked out for us. Pole position, so I think first pole position since more than 1 year, so really good result.
And you got the whole of the band back together. It's you, your brother, it's Daniel, it's Ralph. It must give you a lot of confidence going into a long race.
Sure, we trust each other. We know each other since many years, so it's only advantages for us. So yeah, perfect group of people.
And which class were you racing? Are you going to go in the AM Advantage class or the AM class?
Honestly, I'm not sure, but it's AM. I don't know. I think you know it better.
Well done, congratulations there. Just a quick thing to people, the GT3 class has 3 separate classes. There's Pro, AM and AM Advantage. They all have different weights, they have different amounts of fuel you can take, but more importantly, they have different drive time for their various standard of drivers. So the lower you go in your driver rotation, so the more time for your slower drivers you have, the more advantage you get on weight and fuel. But I'll let Johnny explain all that now.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate that. By the way, that's not a first Herbert pole of the year, but I know what Robert Renau means, because it's the first for that particular car. At Dubai this year, back in January, the 92 car was on pole position, courtesy of a great lap from Sven Muller, who was part of the lineup, along with Klaus Bachler in the 92. But it's the 91 car and Robert Renau that did a 146.587 to get a first pole position, certainly for this season, and Robert reckons that extends back a 12-month period. Second was the 22 WTM powered by Phoenix Ferrari, and that was a Daniel Kajovic's time, 146.7. And then it was a 147.3 from the number 18 Rutronic Racing by TECE Audi R8 LMS. So one Porsche, one Ferrari, one Audi, the top three. And then a Mercedes to make it 4 different marks on the front 2 rows. CP Racing, number 85 of the USA, with their much easily recognised Mercedes AMG GT3, 147.6. Then another Porsche, this time from Dynamic Motorsport of Italy. Car number 7 was 5th. The 17 eDex Sport Mercedes, 6th fastest. Paul-Luc Chatin doing the time. 92 Herbert Motorsport Porsche did a 147.749 to put that 7th, ahead of the Car Collection Motorsport, the blue and white Audi R8 LMS GT3, 148.0. PCR Sports have a Ferrari 458 Italia GT3, car number 16, 9th fastest, ahead of the 718 RTR Projects KTM Crossbow. Another Crossbow 11th from True Racing. So True were pipped fairly late on in the session, actually, to put 718 ahead of 716. The 12th placed car, the 500 Car Collection Motorsport, is the new Audi. And therefore in Class P4, but interesting that it has managed a 12th fastest time, not on an even keel though, remember, to the standard and legal GT3 Audis currently. 13th position, the Reiter Engineering 724 KTM Crossbow. 14th is the Red Camel Jordans.NL Porsche 992 class car, entered into GTX. It's a 911 GT3 Cup Porsche from 955 Villi Motorsport by Ebby Motors, 15th, and another True Racing KTM Crossbow, 16th. 17th and 18th, both from the Vortex V8 crew with their Vortex 1.0, 701 outpipping 712. 19th was the 978 Speed Lover Porsche, ahead of the 989 Rabdan by MRS GT Racing Cup car. ST Racing's number 438 BMW M4 21st, ahead of a similar car from the American squad, RHC Jorgensen Strom by Century. Duvo Racing's Porsche Cup car number 909 didn't take part in the initial phase of the session, but eventually did join and got quicker and quicker. We did not have any times from the Car Collection Motorsport 499 Audi R8 LMS, though. It's the order from the GT part of qualifying. Let's remind you of what happened over the previous 2 30-minute sessions ahead of this year's 24 Hours of Barcelona. So that's qualifying done and dusted for this year's Hankook 24 Hours of Barcelona. You heard it all here live on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. And the next thing on the agenda is night practice, starting at 9 o'clock Central European summertime, and that is another 90-minute session in the darkness, as the name would suggest, and a chance for those drivers that are unfamiliar with this place in darkness hours to at least work out where the reference points are, where your braking and turning points are, because it gets pretty dark in the turns 3, 4 and 5, and then later on in the lap, although there's a bit of floodlighting here and there. It is tricky to work out exactly where those quick sections are. The main straight, always pretty well illuminated, and then you've got to worry about fueling the car as well, away from the floodlights in the pit lane. So plenty for the team still to get to grips with. And you can join us for live coverage of that later on, 9 o'clock local time. If you're not in Central Europe, just head to the webpage radiolemans.com, and the clever little schedule at the bottom of there will do the calculations for you, assuming that your browser time is correct. My thanks to Nick Damon, who's been working incredibly hard up and down the pit lane for the reaction from the two sessions. Thanks to John Hindhoff as well. You can join those two and me, Johnny Palmer, all three of us, for night practice a little later on. We'll see you for that.
One championship, 8 races, legendary circuits, drivers from all over the world, one family, one passion, endurance racing. Welcome to the most professional endurance racing series for all drivers, amateurs, semi-professional and professional. Welcome to the 24-hour series powered by Hankook. Round 1, the Hankook 24 Hours of Dubai. Round 2, the Hankook 12 Hours of Mugello. Round 3, the Hankook 12 Hours of Circuit Paul Ricard. Round 4, Hankook 12 Hours of the Hockenheim Ring. Round 5, Hankook 24 Hours of Portimao. Round 6, the Hankook 24 Hours of Barcelona for the Trofeo Fermi Valer. Round 7, the Coppa Florio for the Hankook 12 Hours of Sicily. Round 8, the Hankook 24 Hours of Sebring. Can you beat the challenge of 8 endurance races? Will you become the 24-hour series champion for 2021? This is endurance. Call your racing friends and register now.